All rise for the Honorable Judge Aaron.
Honorable my ass.
Hello, everyone. I am Judge Aaron. As you can tell, this is a professional courtroom because I have a tie on and glasses. Just like, when Robin Williams would change his attire and have a little bit of a beard, that's how you knew he was sensitive. When I have glasses on and I have a tie on, you know I am an intellectual and I am here to take things seriously. I would never make a mockery of my own courtroom. Having said that, thank you for joining me today for the first edition of the People's Fantasy Court. Today, the case before us is the People versus Patrick Mahomes. The prosecutor, on behalf of the state, we have Jeremy Shulman from the League Winners. Jeremy, thank you for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and give me your opening statement here?
Sure. I'm Jeremy Shulman from the League Winners. You can find all of my stuff there. We're doing some things not only on the website and promoting mostly via Twitter, but on TikTok, which is great. So check us out there with a lot of video breakdowns, betting props, etc. So in terms of opening statements, but before I get into that, I just want to say I'm also dressed appropriately for today's proceedings, just so we're clear where we stand.
I guess I should have read the actual charges. Patrick Mahomes is being charged with being a mid-range QB1 with his current limited receiving core, and the upside of him being the 101 in fantasy and the QB1 is being is the accusation that it is limited. So, sorry, I will let you get right back into it, Jeremy.
Yep.
I didn't see the proper attire you have. I was about to dock you for not wearing a tie, but that's fine. We'll allow it. So please continue with your opening statement.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. So yes, the charges brought against Patrick Mahomes today are 100% viable, and I plan through these proceedings to show why they are viable due to his atrocious receiving core, his terrible offensive line play, his improved defense, and the fact that his current performance has been subpar as compared to the Patrick Mahomes that we're used to seeing. He no longer lacks the top 3 elite upside of your fantasy QB, and the state will prove this as such through today's proceedings. So ready to get into it.
I love it. Guilty. Oh, sorry. That's not how this works. Sorry. Okay. Representing our defendant, we have Dennis Michelson. Dennis, how's it going?
I'm properly attired as well.
No bias there. No bias there. That's what I told him. Jeremy messaged me after, and I said, I know the guy you're messaging, because this was all based off of a Twitter exchange. I said, I know the guy you're messaging. He's a very nice guy, but you realize you're arguing with a Chiefs homer, right? He's like, no, I didn't notice that.
I didn't.
Chiefs homer, Your Honor, but also a person who did not draft any Chiefs wide receivers in redraft this season. So I play with my mind, not with my heart, when it comes to fantasy football. You can find all of my
mind.
Well, that was a long time ago. It went with the hair, Your Honor. You can find all of my content at thescienceoffantasyfootball.com, where I team up with the professor of fantasy football, John Bush, who is one of the best statistical analysis guys that you will find in this space. Also, our Data Lab podcast over on For Frequency's Sake. And, of course, you can see me being a wise ass on a daily basis at DMike Media on Twitter. Your Honor, it is my pleasure and my distinct honor to appear here on the Fantasy Football People's Court, because I am here to defend my client, Patrick Mahomes, who has been maligned. He is off to a slow start, but however, the statistics will show. And when it comes to fantasy football, you better chase what matters when it comes to statistics. The statistics will show that Patrick Mahomes, despite a slow start, is still quite a valuable player to have on your fantasy football team, sir.
Is that true?
It's, of course, got to be
You
true.
can't handle the truth. Sorry. I'm not going to just drop cliche after cliche. I promise I'm taking this serious.
Lies.
I wore a tie.
Lies.
I would never do anything this shit, no. All right. I guess we should start with Jeremy, the prosecution side. Which of your 900 graphics, for someone who didn't send me graphics till sent me 900 graphics, which of the 900 exhibits would you like?
Put Patty's beautiful face up there first.
You sent 2 of them. The one with the highlighted on it or the one without?
No, forget that one. Just the normal one.
Just the normal one.
Because that's more up to date.
I'm not sure how these graphics come up because this is the first time I've used them.
Can you make it a little bigger? Just focus on the stats there.
Oh, well. Sure. Don't mind if I do.
There we go.
Anything else I can do for you today?
Yeah, cup of tea, Your Honor. Cup of tea. As we get into it here. So, look, this is Exhibit A right here, but Exhibit B is Patrick Mahomes' current fantasy statistics. We've used standard quarterback scoring here, which means it's 4 point per passing touchdown. You don't really need to focus on anything except that rank column there, where he has finished as the QB 7, 11, 5, 17, 11, and 7 in every single week this season. At no point did he finish as a top 3 quarterback. Certainly, he is currently the QB 4 on the season in this scoring format. We're not going to take that away from him, but at the same time, he's not giving you those elite scoring weeks that are going to help you win your fantasy league. He is consistent. That is fine. But as you can see, he's also only thrown 3 touchdowns once. He is running the ball slightly more for more productivity. However, he has not scored a touchdown on the ground. So really, he's not doing what you look for Patrick Mahomes to do, which is every 3 to 4 games, throw 5 passing touchdowns. And the concern here is not necessarily the play of Patrick Mahomes, but more so what he is working with on the offensive side of the ball and the defense that is limiting everyone.
For those of you who can't see or don't have the luxury of a old person big ass screen calculator, 9.666, that is the average of all 6 of those finishes. So he has averaged a QB 9.6 finish. Oh shit, I gotta stop doing that. All right, sorry. Do you have a further exhibit you would like to go to before we go to Dennis?
Are we going to go back and forth, or do you want to just roll through all of them?
You guys get to decide. Would you like to go back and forth, or do we want to go? Dennis, you want to go next?
Well,
that works for me, Your Honor. While the finishes on a weekly basis are,
Dennis, what graphic do you want?
Let's go with Exhibit A, Your Honor. We'll take a look at and we'll chase what matters, because each and every week, the number of points that it takes to reach that QB 1 or 5 or 10 ranking changes dramatically. And what matters in fantasy football is not where your quarterback finishes that week. It's how he compares point-wise to the player that you're matched up against. Quite often, the difference between quarterback 1 to quarterback 5 to quarterback 10 can be vastly different on any given basis. In fantasy football, I believe that there are 3 things that matter most when it comes to a quarterback's performance or any player's performance.
Counselor, I hate to interrupt you. What are we looking at? Fantasy points per week?
We're getting there, Your Honor. Okay, we're getting there. The 3 things that
what I'm looking at.
The 3 things,
Your Honor.
The 3 things that matter the most, Your Honor, are games that are very, very poor. And in this statistical comparison, I did use 6 points for a touchdown. So we'll have to adjust the numbers a little bit if we wanted to get to the same graphic as my esteemed colleague on the other side of the bar. But using this point scheme, we see points of 15 or less, points 25 or more, and points 35 or more. The reason those numbers are significant, Your Honor, is those correspond to a really bad game that will cost your team a game when it comes to your fake fantasy football team. The second number, 25 and over, is about where you'd expect your quarterback to be on a mean performance for a starting quarterback in a one quarterback league. And then the final is the games that your quarterback performs so well that him alone can affect the outcome of your fantasy football endeavor. With quarterbacks, I'm a big believer that consistency does matter. And if you look, my esteemed client, Patrick Mahomes, has 0 games where he cost your team a win by having a really, really low score. Whereas Josh Allen has had 1, Lamar Jackson has had 2, Kirk Cousins has had 2, Jared Goff has had 1. Now, where my defendant has not performed as well, as stated by my esteemed colleague on the other side of the bar, is he has yet to have one of those typical Patrick Mahomes won my weeks. However, if you look at the red zone efficiency for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, last year they were near the top with a 71% efficiency rating in scoring touchdowns when they were in the red zone. This year, they're at 54%. Last year, they lacked an alpha wide receiver, with Juju Smith, their best wide receiver, who was by no stretch of the imagination the kind of number one wide receiver that a team needs. So if you look back to 2021 and 2020, when they had a clear WR1 in Tyreek Hill, their efficiency was worse in the red zone. So the concept that my esteemed colleague on the other side of the bar has proposed, that Patrick Mahomes will not be the elite quarterback you want without a WR1 in his stable, has been debunked using these statistics that I've shown you here, Your Honor.
So what I got out of that was your argument for why he could still be an elite 101 quarterback is that he's a safe middling QB1.
No, Your Honor. My statement is that he is the most consistent quarterback that you will see in fantasy football right now. If you look at his MVP index, which is a statistical tool that I developed over at Science of Fantasy Football that combines these 3 metrics, right now Patrick Mahomes is 4th in fantasy football, despite having one of the worst red zone percentages. And as we've seen over the years, Patrick Mahomes does convert more in the red zone. Had he had just 1 more touchdown in 2 of his 6 games when he was in the red zone, for instance, last week, 1 out of 5 was his percentage. If you just see improvement of 1 touchdown every other game this year, he would clearly be the 2nd or 3rd most effective quarterback in fantasy football. And it's my testimony that he is going to get better in the red zone as the year unfolds.
My question, or my my way of thinking here is, while QB4 is very consistent, it's not the 101 he's being argued to be. And while I do agree, had he had just 1 more touchdown, he could beat at QB1. If the prosecutor wasn't asleep at the switch, he probably would have objected and said, had he thrown 3 more hypotheticals, he might be QB9. If we're just going to Azer stat thing and pull it out of our butt. I'm just saying.
Your Honor, I object to the objection that you've just stated.
I object to you objecting about my objection.
But if it is my turn, we can quickly go to Exhibit B, which will be from Player Profiler. You could pull that up.
It'll cost you.
Give me the 3rd bit down. Oh, no, we're good there. very briefly, just responding to the esteemed counselor on the other side of the bar and his assertion that the red zone
you don't get points for kissing ass.
that the red zone situation is fine. You'll notice that right there, and if you could kind of somehow highlight or circle it with your mouse, Judge, the red zone completion percentage, you'll notice it is 47.7%. The percentage is not what I'm interested in. It is the fact that it is number 23 in the league out of how many are we talking about? 32 quarterbacks now. We'll assume that a few quarterbacks here have, maybe it's a Gardner Minshew situation. You know, maybe there's guys who have only started a couple of games, and we'll throw out, I don't know, 5, 6 of those. He's still not looking at a top 12 quarterback situation in the red zone. Dennis also brought up the fact that when he had a true wide receiver one in Tyreek Hill, the red zone situation and efficiency was worse. That's because Tyreek Hill scores 60-yard touchdowns. The issue here is that they don't have a Tyreek Hill right now. There's nobody putting it in from deep. And the guy that you want, Travis Kelce, his game has been tailored, cut off at the knees swiftly in 2023. And I'm concerned that it's possible that he's lost a step. And I don't think he's going to shake it off at this point.
That may be a whole other set of charges there that we may be having part 2 of the Dennis versus Jeremy debate here.
Your Honor, if you would please add Exhibit B to the court docket here.
Good God, I'm not a real judge. You know that, right? You're not supposed to make me work.
You're supposed to have a real bailiff here to help you. That's the biggest difficulty.
You pay for a bailiff.
But if you look at one of my esteemed colleagues' contentions is that Patrick Mahomes will not be a top quarterback in fantasy football until the Chiefs add an elite wide receiver. Well, first of all, I do believe that they have the elite wide receiver, and I'll go into that in more detail later in my presentation. But if you look at just the data here, in 2020, with no doubt one of the most elite of all elite wide receivers in Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes was 4th in points per game in fantasy football and 5th in total points. If you look at 2021, with again the most elite of elite wide receivers in Tyreek Hill, he was 4th in points per game and 4th in total points. Last year, with Juju Smith-Schuster as his lead wide receiver, who nobody will confuse with a top wide receiver in the National Football League at this point in Juju Smith's career. He was number 1 in total points, number 2 in points per game. So clearly, my esteemed colleague's argument that he will not be a number 1 quarterback again without an elite wide receiver has been shown to be blatantly false.
That's interesting, Dennis. You may have started to sway me towards you. I'm not sure if I agree with the assertion that he's still the 101, but I think after reading some of your evidence here, I'm starting to blame it more on Travis Kelce's injuries and the offensive line play in front of him and general offense down, as opposed to just, so I agree with the premise of Jeremy at this point, but I'm starting to agree that maybe it's not necessarily related to wide receivers and it's more of a big picture issue here.
Objection, Your Honor. Objection.
To what?
To your commentary. Just a general objection. I object to
it.
Your Honor, and the statement that was made by my esteemed colleague on the opposite side of the bar that
I don't see an esteemed colleague, I just see this clown.
That brought us to this point that we've ended up in the People's Fantasy Court, Your Honor, is that his claim was that Patrick Mahomes was a middling quarterback one. So for the record, I want to say that that is part of my defense, that he is not a middling. At the very worst, with a very slow start to the 2023 season, he is no worse than the fourth best quarterback in fantasy football. And Your Honor, if I will, if you may, entertain one more piece of evidence. Andy Reid, Coach Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs, is not known for trusting rookie wide receivers very much. In fact, back in his rookie year, Tyreek Hill, who would go on to be a future Hall of Fame wide receiver without a doubt, only got 418 total snaps in his 16-game season. That's 26 snaps per game. He only received 83 targets in those 16 games, which is a little over 5 per game, with only 61 receptions in 16 games at 3.8 receptions per game. Rashee Rice so far, only 6 games into his rookie season, has 26 snaps per game, 4.67 targets per game, and 3.5 receptions per game. Statistics that line up much better than Tyreek Hill's first 6 games, and actually very comparable when you average out his entire season. So my contention is that as the season goes on, Rashee Rice will actually emerge as a very viable WR1 for Mr. Patrick Mahomes, which will take some of the heat off of Mrs. Travis Kelce Swift, and will increase the percentages of Patrick Mahomes' success in the red zone, because Rashee Rice is a very big, viable red zone target. In fact, has been more targeted in the red zone already in his first 6 games on average than Tyreek Hill ever did in his career.
Okay.
Your Honor, you heard it here first. 3.5 targets per game, a true alpha, Rashee Rice.
Okay.
My esteemed colleague, I am pointing out that the statistics are better than Tyreek Hill, who did develop into a true WR1. And I think because of the lack of any other obvious WR1 on the Kansas City Chiefs, I think for the remainder of the season going forward, we're going to see a big increase in Rashee Rice's snap count, which we have been seeing in the last few weeks, Your Honor.
They should. They need
and that will lead to having a legitimate alpha wide receiver in the Kansas City Chiefs lineup. However, as the statistics have shown in Exhibit B, the existence of an alpha wide receiver does not appear to be important to the status of Patrick Mahomes in fake football, Your Honor.
Okay, before I render a verdict here, I have one question I think I'd like to set parameters that we agree on. When referring to him as a, excuse me, sorry guys, as a middling QB1, for the terms of middling QB, would we agree that's QB 5, 6, 7, 8 is middling, top 4 is high end, 9, 10, 11, 12 is low end, so we're agreeing it's QB 5, 6, 7, 8?
Sure.
That's
I stipulate to that, Your Honor.
Awesome. All right. Would anyone like to make further closing statements here or plug themselves one more time before we get to a verdict? The defense? No?
Well, yeah. Listen, the prosecution would just like to add the fact that although Travis Kelce has struggled, he's still clearly a phenomenal tight end. Although Patrick Mahomes has not put up those elite games, he's still clearly an amazing NFL quarterback. The issue that I'm having is we're seeing quarterbacks like Jared Goff, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, at least at the beginning of the season, put up some monster games. And while Patrick Mahomes is running the ball at a good clip and putting up yards. He's not putting the ball in the end zone like, say, Dak Prescott has, at least last week, or certainly a Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen level. So when you're talking about the elite of the elite, the running game in Kansas City, the defense in Kansas City, the offensive line struggles for the Chiefs, and of course the fact that Kadarius Toney has a criminally low ADOT, the likes of Rondale Moore, the fact that Rashee Rice is a rookie and has been very good, but as Dennis mentioned, is just 3.5 or so targets per game currently. The fact that Sky Moore has been relatively invisible. These are the issues that could be solved by a true alpha receiver who would gain separation, command targets, improve red zone efficiency, all of which is a problem for the Chiefs currently. So with that, you can find all of my work at the League Winners. You can especially check out our TikTok where we're doing some good things.
The law offices of the League Winners, he means.
Yes, and the prosecution will rest on that.
Your Honor, it has been my my deepest honor to appear here in Your Honor's court, Your Honor.
I don't need sarcasm.
We'll try to see if I can say Your Honor a few more times, Your Honor.
I'm out of
Your
order.
Honor, Your Honor.
You're out of order, Dennis.
This whole court's out of order. Who was that from?
Also, it's been my honor, Your Honor, to appear with the Honorable Jeremy, who I have the utmost esteem for, sir. But I will say that the statistics of Patrick Mahomes from last year show that he is indeed still one of the elite wide quarterbacks to own in fantasy football, even though he did not have an elite wide receiver last year. His wide receiver package this year, his room, is much better than what it was at this time last year. Now, the place that the Chiefs have been lacking is with penalties by their offensive tackles, which have been getting a little bit better as the season wears on. When we see more of Rashee Rice on the field, when we see a healthy Travis Kelce on the field, and when we see better offensive line play by the Kansas City Chiefs, we will continue to see Patrick Mahomes perform at a Patrick Mahomes-like level. Even with all of the issues that the Kansas City Chiefs have had up until this point, and my esteemed colleague is correct, expecting the 5 touchdown games out of Patrick Mahomes with a defense that is top 5 in the league might be asking too much. But to see a typical Patrick Mahomes 3 touchdown game to get the lead before they work some clock is certainly going to be the option going forward. So while Patrick Mahomes may have been overdrafted as the QB1 this year, because I stated that he was in the top 3 with Hurts and Josh Allen, and I made the statement preseason that Jalen Hurts might be emerging as the one because the defense got worse on the Eagles. But I still contend that Patrick Mahomes is one of the safest options in fantasy football because he has been one of the most consistent year in, year out over the past 3 to 4 seasons of his career. And with that, I urge everybody to head over to scienceoffantasyfootball.com where you can learn more about chasing the stats that matter. And with that, I rest my case.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Before I render a verdict, I have a potential plea bargain that I would like to recommend. I would like to recommend to the prosecutor that he drop the current charge that Travis Kelce, that Patrick Mahomes is no longer a quarterback with the 101 upside. And in return, I would like the defense to plead guilty to the charge that he is currently a middle-of-the-pack QB1, but only due to the circumstances, and should Travis Kelce's health the offensive system and the offensive line play improve, he still has the 101 potential. Would both sides like to agree to this plea, or shall I render a verdict and say, fuck you both?
No deal.
No deal?
No deal.
No deal, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm
We have no
going
deal.
all the way on this one, Your Honor.
We have no deal. They are gamblers and shooters going to shoot. So, with that in mind, since it doesn't appear we have a jury of our peers, the judge will render a verdict. Patrick Mahomes, you stand accused of no longer having upside in this current season to be the 101 for fantasy football. The judge, the esteemed, the honorable Judge Aaron, honors you with his honorable verdict. His honorable verdict is...
The People's Fantasy Court finds you guilty.
Should have taken the plea deal. I think he's QB 4, 5, 6 right now. But that's why I tried to offer you guys the plea deal. I was trying to meet you halfway.
Your
You're
Honor.
both right, but
Your Honor, we are looking forward. We are not looking back.
well, I don't know. Personally, if I was you, I'd have broken out the black glove and pulled the glove don't fit bit. But just saying. So, all
Look,
right.
Julio
well,
Jones was out there. You know, you missed the boat.
gosh. You are being held in contempt of court for that stupidity. Oh my God! Don't ever say
Yeah, I'm
that
just
again.
saying.
Good God. So, all right. With that in mind, I'd like to thank both Dennis and Jeremy for dealing with my stupidity today and having some fun here with a Twitter debate that we were able to turn into a half hour of enjoyable banter instead of just resorting to fuck you, you're an idiot, and blocking each other on Twitter, which, I mean, is normally what happens. So let's try to resolve things.
Could still happen. Could still happen. You never know. Leave the options open.
That's what I
Leave all
mean.
options open.
10 minutes from now, I'm going to post this, and we're going to have Dennis commenting that ignore these guys, they're idiots and they're wrong. But
The day is young in the Central Time Zone.
all right. Well, thank you for joining, guys. Catch us next time. We're going to do this every Wednesday, maybe not at 10 o'clock. Depends who's on. I got to work with some people. If you have any recommendations for further Twitter debates that could be settled in the People's Fantasy Court, please forward them to me at FF Mad Scientist. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks, Dennis and Jeremy, once again for participating. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.